Well, first of all, thank you very much for having me. It's a real honor to be here. So my presentation aims at understanding the evolution of the place of the oligarchs, Ukrainian oligarchs, within the political system and the state apparatus, to understand the structural changes that we are facing in the time of war, and especially so since the 24th February. So as talking about oligarchs, oligarchs is a very wide category in Ukraine, so I will only focus on the main one, let's say the old oligarchs, who have acquired monopolies in certain sectors of the Ukrainian economy. And according to the definitions that has been given also by the political power since 2019, the ones who can use political leverage and media to influence political process and political decision. The question is how the war is actually affecting the oligarchic systems that we have known, that was working since the mid-90s. And it's not only the war, but also the result of political will that we can face as a result, a form of centralization of the state. So my last point will deal with this process of centralization of the states that we can face during the war. So let's begin with the fact that there are two kinds of corruption in Ukraine. Was the one what we can call the daily life corruption, and the corruption which is directly linked to state institutions and schemes of embezzlements. The oligarchs are the analyzer of the functioning of a state that has been state captured by private interests. And so the way these actors, these economic actors, have been able to influence on the political process was mainly by putting using interpersonal connections and putting loyal actors in different places in the states, such as ministries, presidential administration, parliament, parliamentary committees, Generalna Prokuratura, and SBU, of course. And so these oligarchs have been able to capture the state industries that have been privatized in the 90s, and using the resources, the public resources of the state. And so until recently, the state was really functioning through a rent-seeking logic. And they were using the political scene as an arena to defend their private interests. So during, for example, the presidential elections, these actors were able to support one or many candidates that will then defend or represent their interests on the political scene. And the second level was mostly on using this parliamentary arena to block the reforms that were against their interest, or pushing reforms that would permit them to increase their wealth. So, for example, during the private bank affair, the anti-Kolomoisky law have been blocked by the party of Kolomoisky by 16,000 amendments. So I'm okay. So the question of de-oligarchization has been raised after the arrival of Volodymyr Zelensky in power. It has been raised internally in the party. So the question of political corruption was put as a main priority. For example, the president has also said in the parties that every act of selling votes will be punished, and these statements have been followed by evolutions in terms of legislation, such as the de-oligarchization law, which gives a legal definition of the oligarch to impose restrictions for the ones who have been qualified as such as the interdiction to sponsor party, to take part in privatizations, and officials who would have links with oligarchs should make a declaration to this. So the names of the oligarchs, of people who are qualified as such, are in a register of the Council of National Security and Defense. But this law has not been applied, and we can say that the oligarchization is basically the result of the war and the political will. For example, even if in May 2021, Viktor Medvedchuk was forbidden to, by decree, three of his channels have been forbidden. What has permitted to the political power to accelerate this process was actually the war, and he was exchanged with prisoners of Azovstal. In fact, what has really changed since the beginning of the war, and the main evolutions that we could have noticed in comparison to 2014. So, for example, yesterday the question of the weakness of the state has been raised, and one of the main factors was actually the fragmentation through this private interest that was capturing the state, and the subordination of the political scene by these private interests. So in 2014, as there was no army, the oligarchs have been really a keystone in the organization of the armed mobilization, so such as, for example, Igor Kolomoisky, and actors who have been close to him. And the fact that, for example, Rinat Akhmetov didn't show a strong position at the very beginning of the war has also permitted the collapse of the state institutions in the East. In 2022, as there was a centralization of the military apparatus and the creation of an army, we could see the role of the oligarchs has been stigmatized in the sphere of defense, but also in terms of politics, because so the political class is actually autonomizing from these private interests. The war has created, has destroyed a lot of assets, and the war is also dictating the political agenda of the parliament. So now we can see that in this wartime there is, well, we can see the destruction of the model, of the oligarchic model that we were knowing, due to the political will and due to the war.